You guys know how hyped I was for the Louis Vuitton Cherry Blossom release. I had my wish list ready. I spent over 30 minutes strategizing with my client advisor pre-release, and I even juggled time zones from a last minute trip to LA to make sure I was ready. Let me tell you, this release did not go as planned. Despite all the preparation and insider tips I thought I had, there were definitely some major bumps and even heartbreaks along the way. If you're curious about what actually happened behind the scenes, what I managed to snag, including what tragically slipped through my fingers, and the crucial lessons that I learned from the absolutely chaotic Cherry Blossom release, then you're gonna wanna keep watching. Trust me, you'll wanna hear about the app secret that was a total game changer, why desktop was a total bust, and this time my client advisor wasn't able to save the day. All right, guys, this video is basically part 2 to my Cherry Blossom unboxing, so if you have not watched that yet, make sure you go and check that out after. Let's dive right into my release experience. Today's video is going to cover pre-launch planning, the release day itself, and finally, some of the key lessons that I learned along the way. Maybe some of them will come in handy for the upcoming Cherry release. Let's dive into pre-release planning first, starting with the initial contact and the expectations that my client advisor had set for me from the get-go. My client advisor originally reached out to me around February 12th. We were going back and forth about the order status of my ostrich pocket organizer, actually. And at the end of that message, she mentioned something along the lines of having an update for me on the Cherry Blossom collection shortly. She was waiting for some more information. I didn't ask her. She just included that in her text sort of out of nowhere preemptively. At that point, she did set initial expectations that the Cherry Blossom release was supposed to be a lot smaller than the initial multicolor release. We already knew that it was going to be a lot less styles, but she said that the inventory was going to be very limited as well. I believe she implied that this was the smallest of all of the parts. So I did know from the get-go that inventory was going to be very limited and that it was going to be hard to get, especially based on the original release. I 100% expected that this collection was going to sell out regardless. In my opinion, from the get-go, multicolor was going to be number 1, cherries was going to be number 2, and Cherry Blossom was going to be number 3, but irregardless, all 3 of them were going to sell out. By February 28th, my client advisor followed up with the devastating news that there weren't going to be any pre-orders for the Cherry Blossom release. I'm speaking, of course, for the US where I am located. There were no pre-orders in the US, no matter what your VIC client status was, even VVIC, it just wasn't going to happen. And I have spent a decent amount of money this year. I believe in my trailing 12 months, both of my Speedy P9s were included, as well as many other purchases, and as much as I spent on the first Murakami release, my spend was really getting up there, so it did not matter. So it was at this point that we actually got on the phone and spent over 30 minutes strategizing what our game plan was for the pre-launch day, which was March 14th, when the collection was supposed to be released online. All clients would have access to it. If you guys watched my wishlist video, then you will know that I laid out my top 12 items. If given the opportunity, I wanted to purchase all 12 of those items, but I did separate them into 2 groups, my top 6 and then my second priority top 6. My top 6 items were the Alma BB, the furry bag charm, the chain, the Nice Mini, the pink bandeau, and the brown silk scarf. My client advisor did have information around what were the key investments for the US market in terms of inventory versus some of the more limited items. Therefore, they would be harder to get or they would go quicker. So we did kind of like lay out a game plan there, in that she knew the Alma had less inventory than the Speedy. The fuzzy bag charm was very limited. The Nice Mini was a key investment. So we kind of knew those top 3 items that I wanted were limited in inventory. We were going to have to go for those first, regardless of the fact that they were my top 3. When we spoke at that time, she was unaware of any limitations in the US market. We had heard that Europe was limited to 2, but as far as she knew, there were no set limits in the US. Every region sort of has their different standards, which is confusing. I know. I don't really get it. To this date, I've never gotten in trouble. I buy from multiple categories. I don't buy multiples of the same item. So again, I can't really comment on it, but to this date, there have not been any limits. She said there was a little chatter about it, but at that time, there were no like official limits in place. But I was kind of worried about it because I didn't want to go for some items and then not get some of my top items if for some reason they were like, no, you can only buy 6 or whatever at the time. So that was a concern that I had when we were sort of strategizing. She also told me that they were doing that waiting room release, which would mean that you would log on, go to the website, they would place you in a waiting room. Once you got into shop, you would have 10 minutes to shop and check out, and you had to check out within 10 minutes. Otherwise, you would lose your items. So she really stressed the importance of moving quickly once you were able to get out of the waiting room and be able to shop. So that was, I believe, the same launch strategy they used for the Louis Vuitton Air Force Ones, which was a complete shit show. So I did not have a lot of hope for that. I will be upfront. I was really concerned about what that waiting room release was going to look like, but I always had the intentions of shopping on both desktop and app. I do a lot of release shopping, whether it's sneakers, streetwear, or obviously even luxury. I'm very used to working on both a desktop and app at the same time, so I always planned on doing that regardless. So I did have one last minute wrench thrown into my whole plan. I actually planned to take the day off work for the release on Friday, March 14th. I know that sounds crazy, but I am so swamped and busy at work, and honestly, I never take time off. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take the day off, take a PTO day, have the day to be like calm and only focus on this release, and then, you know, get some stuff done around the house, etc. But, you know, sometimes Fridays are easier to take off. So that is what I planned. However, the Saturday before the release, I did get asked to go to a last minute meeting in Los Angeles. I live in the Midwest, so I literally had to make plans to travel in the next 4 days. I left Wednesday for a meeting on Thursday, and then I was going to be flying home on Friday. So this sort of threw a wrench in all of my plans because my whole strategy I had planned around the Eastern and Central time zone. I'm in the Eastern time zone. My client advisor is in the Central time zone, but now I was going to be in the Pacific time zone. So it was just all confusing and complicated. On top of that, I was just very stressed out at work, having to travel last minute. I'm a very pre-planned person, so I don't like last minute changes. And then I also had a huge presentation the following week that I was preparing for, and I had just been so swamped, so busy. That's why I hadn't been on YouTube or TikTok. And then, of course, this was all happening around the release. So everything was just very hectic for me. Let's talk about the release time. So we knew it was Friday, March 14th, right? When I had talked to my client advisor, she said that the launch time would be at 8 a.m. Central Time. She is in Texas. The digital client advisors, the customer service team that sits in Texas, they start at 8 a.m. Central Time. She was very confident that it would not launch before then because it would not make sense to release something when the customer service people weren't even on staff to manage any questions or reach outs during the release, right? Which totally makes sense to me. However, I make videos on TikTok as well. Go follow me on there if you do not follow me. Sometimes it's easier or faster for me to put content out there. And a lot of people in my comments were very confident that the release time was 8 a.m. Eastern time. So there was this big like confusion here on whether it was going to be 8 a.m. Eastern or 9 a.m. Eastern, which is 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Central, between those two times, right? Not even taking into account the fact that I was now going to be on Pacific, but again, it's confusing for me to talk about all time zones, so just bear with me. My plan based on those comments was I'm going to speak in Eastern time just so it makes sense. My plan was to be on by 8 a.m. Eastern and be, you know, refreshing, paying attention between 8 or 9. I expected it to be 8 or 9. Even though my client advisor said 9 a.m. Eastern, I wanted to be prepared. 1 hour, who cares? I'll get up, I'll start looking. No sweat off my back, right? All right, now let's get into my actual launch day experience. I am in LA. I went out the night before with some of my friends that live there, some of my college best friends that live there. I stayed up a little too late and I was so tired in the morning. I set like 6 alarms, okay? So I think I set one for like 4:45 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I finally got up at 5:10 a.m. Pacific time. I got my desktop up. I got my app open. I'm refreshing both screens. Didn't see anything yet. I have people DMing me on Instagram, messaging me on TikTok. Everybody's excited for the release. I am exhausted just from the week going out with friends, and I'm always tired. I am not a morning person, but I was ready, okay? So I remember apparently the waiting room opened on desktop around 7 a.m. Eastern. I believe the Zendaya banner went up. When you click through from that, it only showed about 6 items. I believe it was the 3 bag charms, the bandeau, a bracelet, and a scarf. And when you click through to one of those items, then it would place you in the waiting room waiting to see if you got in to shop, right? So everybody was clicking in and just waiting on desktop. App was not giving you that same waiting room experience. So I was messaging with several people that morning, both in Instagram DMs and on TikTok app, but I was, obviously trying to focus on Louis Vuitton, but I would see like notifications pop up and then I might click them and respond if I had time because, you're just refreshing and waiting. And this person on TikTok that I had been messaging with, she is an absolute saint because she let me know that she was able to check out with a bag charm on app. And that's sort of when the crazy started. So the app style code trick was the key to success in this release. The desktop was an absolute honeypot. I don't even know of anybody that got through on desktop that was able to check out. All of the action was happening on the app. The key to successfully purchasing an item was searching the style code and adding it to your cart and checking out that way. If you did not have the style code numbers, you were not able to do this. You were just sitting there waiting. And this is why I always love sharing style codes on both my TikToks and my YouTube videos when I can, because they're very valuable and true Louis Vuitton fans. I'm sure the people watching this video, we all know about the style codes and where to find them if we actually want them. Matt D always shares them. They're very valuable for situations just like this. I have an Excel spreadsheet, okay? Again, like I said, I strategize with my sales associate. I have an Excel spreadsheet of all the styles and prices and everything because of the content that I create to keep everything organized and for my own personal budgeting reasons, like what I'm planning to buy, how much I expect all that to cost, etc. And I had my top items laid out there, so I just started going down the list. The first item that I typed in was my number 1 item. It was the fuzzy bag charm. It appeared, it let me add it to cart, and it let me start going to the checkout process. I was so freaked out about the fact that this was actually happening. This was around 7:30. I didn't think it was real. Like I thought something was broken. I thought it was gonna kick me out or cancel my order. Like it just didn't seem like it should be this easy. I even think I went back and went through because I was so confused if I should wait for my client advisor to get into work or if I should, I don't know. Honestly, I was wasting time. Eventually I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to check out. I'm just going to see what happens. I went all the way through the order. I can't remember for that one. Did I do PayPal? I'm going to check because I do think this is valuable information. Okay, I did check out on PayPal. Yeah, okay. So I did check out on that bag charm on PayPal. Everything worked. It went through. And again, I was shocked staring there at my confirmation. I screenshot it and I immediately sent it to my client advisor. So let me just check my notes. I completed my first order around 8:30 a.m. Eastern, which was 7:30 Central Time, 5:30 Pacific Time. Apologies for all this confusion on time zones, but I just want to be very clear. I had so many fears. Like I said, I thought that it could have been a glitch, that it was going to get canceled. I was like, there's no way. My client advisor said that the furry bag charm was going to be one of the hottest things to get. How did I just check out with it? But I did. So I sent her that screenshot. I said, I'll deal with that later. Let me just get back in here, right? Get back into my spreadsheet, start typing in more styles numbers. I was going down the list. So next on my list was that Alma BB. I typed in the Alma BB style number and it was there. I was able to add it to my cart. I put it in my cart and then this is where I made a terrible mistake. So hurry the F up. My advice is don't be greedy. Pick your top 1 to 3 items and try to check out and then maybe get back in line and go back for more. But you don't want to risk losing everything for trying to get too much. I got greedy. I said, you know what? This is too easy. maybe not everybody knows what's happening right now. I seem to be having luck. I'm going to go back and I'm going to add the scarves. So I had the Alma BB in my cart. I went back for the pink bandeau and the brown scarf, which were my top two. I added those two to my cart successfully. I had all three items in my cart, the Alma BB, the pink bandeau, the brown scarf, and it blocked me from checking out, and it said something was out of stock. It wouldn't tell me which item was out of stock, but one of the items was out of stock, and that is when I knew that I had screwed myself. I had broke one of my own rules. I literally made a TikTok the day before telling people, don't be greedy. If you have your number one item in your cart, just check out and go back for more. I broke my own rule and I was going to get punished for it. So I was like, all right, delete the scarves. Just try to check out with the Alma. Screw the scarves. I took the scarves out, tried to check out with the Alma. No, it was gone. It was sold out. I lost it. It was in my hands. It slipped through my fingers. It just wasn't meant to be, I guess. So then got rid of the Alma, went back for the pink bandeau and the brown scarf. I successfully checked out with those two items, no problem. Took a screenshot of that confirmation, sent it to my client advisor. I checked out on that order at 8:54 a.m. So 6 minutes before my client advisor was due to sign on for her shift. So at that point, I had secured the fuzzy bag charm, the pink bandeau, and the brown scarf on my own without any assistance from my client advisor. She texted me back, I think it was like 2 minutes before 8 a.m. Central, so her shift time, so 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, and said, I will check those orders as soon as I log in. So I assume she got into work. She started checking everything, signing on, going down the rest of the list. So the other thing that we had decided when we were strategizing together was like, we were both going to try for the items. And if I got any items, I was supposed to let her know so that she could remove them from her list, because she was going to just keep trying to go through everything as she could. And again, if I got something, she would just not check for that item anymore. She had mentioned to me previously that the digital client advisor team has access to the exact same inventory that we're competing for online as customers, right? The only thing that they can bypass is that actual checkout process where they can just send a payment link to check out. And if we're struggling in that checkout process, they can possibly do that faster. So if it's sold out, she can't, swipe it from someone. It is what it is. I think maybe she can see the inventory levels. I'm not for sure if they get updates or something. I don't know if it's live inventory levels, but I'm wondering if they have some sort of knowledge of that. Anyways, I got those 3 items on my own. She was able to help me secure the additional 3 items. So when she got in at 9:04 a.m. Eastern, so 4 minutes after she clocked in, she sent me a payment link for the cosmetic pouch and the brown bandeau on one order. We are in tandem. So when she sends me a payment link, I always pay immediately. She'll check with me first, make sure I'm ready, but she knew I was on my game this morning. So I paid that as soon as she sent it over. And then it wasn't until 9:33 a.m., so 30 minutes later, 9:33 a.m. Eastern, that she sent me a payment link for the Speedy. So this was 6:33 my time. So I had been up at that point now for an hour and 20 minutes, just checking style numbers, continuing to go down the list of all those items that I wanted, was having no additional luck. So she sent me that payment link for the Speedy at 9:33 a.m. Eastern. Again, checked out ASAP, everything went through, and it worked out. So I'm very thankful that I was able to get her help, because I was struggling to get any of those items on my own, even though I continued to check items on the list. So I got 3 items. She helped me get 3 items. I am so thankful for what I was able to get. I know some people got nothing. I'm thankful that I was able to get 6 items. I'm thankful that I got 3 on my own and that she was able to assist me. For the in-store release on March 21st, I was not able to get anything. So usually my client advisor is able to pull from digital and in-store inventory. That is one of the benefits of working with a digital client advisor sometimes. However, for this release, it did seem like it was very strict. And I know it only released in-store at 7 7 locations. It does seem like ordering became available later in the afternoon, specifically for in-store associates, but my digital client advisor was not able to get me anything from that release. So that part on March 21st, it was good to have an in-store relationship. I know a lot of people lucked out during the in-store release. So that is one thing that I, again, did not have access to. I also want to note that I was surprised how quickly everything shipped. Like, I got shipping notices like the next day or even same day. I was shocked. Everything got moved in preparation. It usually takes a long time, but it seemed like everything was in stock and ready to go. So that was kind of nice. There was no waiting game on that in preparation. So that was nice. Okay, so I believe that's everything for the actual day of release. I'm sure I might be forgetting things. Drop any questions in the comments below, but let's jump into post-release lessons learned. I want to summarize and go over things that might come in handy for the next cherry release. So I would say the key takeaway, which I already mentioned, was having that style number information. And again, if you are ingrained in the handbag community, the luxury YouTube space, you know all about the style numbers. But this release was proof just how important it is to have those items written down and to keep track of them when you're putting together your wish list. So like I said, I always maintain a spreadsheet of what I'm looking to buy, including that style number information, what that item is, and the price, not just for content, but for my own budgeting reasons. And I had to put together that list of what my 12 items were so that I, again, was going back searching for exactly what I wanted. Future releases, I think it would be a great tip to always have those style numbers written down for what you're looking for and what you want. And another thing is, stick to your list. Don't panic buy things that you don't actually want because you're not able to get the things that you had on your list. And that is something that I feel like I almost leaned that way of like, should I ask her to try to get me the capucines or something instead, because I was feeling sad about not getting those items. But really stick to what you want and don't deviate from the plan or get distracted. My second biggest tip, which again, I shared on my TikTok, is don't be greedy. If you have a top 1, 2, 3 items, if you get that item in your cart, check out immediately. I learned this lesson hard in this release. I'm so happy that I got the fuzzy bag charm. I followed my rule with that one. I don't know why I didn't follow that rule with the Alma, and again, I paid the consequences for that. But a lot of times when people go back, they try to get like 6 items in your cart, you're wasting time. And then when something goes out of stock and you don't know which item that is, it's a waste of time to go through and figure that out. Just put 1, maybe 2 items in your cart. But I had the most success with that first checkout, just putting the 1 item in, checking out, and then going back for more. If you have your list tiered in terms of priority, just do that. Focus, don't be greedy, don't go back for more because you could lose the things that you want the most. So one thing I want to talk about is payment method. And this came up a lot with the multicolor release. Lots of people were struggling checking out with Apple Pay. I hear that all the time. Some people are like, oh no, it was fine. I got through, it's fine. The way that you check out on Louis Vuitton, they are very strict about your credit card information matching your billing and your shipping information, right? So like your name on your credit card matching your shipping name. My client advisor from the beginning, when I set up my account, told me how important it was for all that stuff to match. Otherwise, the payment won't go through. So I don't know, something with Apple Pay, a lot of people were struggling with it. I have never had an issue with PayPal. I checked out successfully with PayPal with my orders here. I use PayPal a lot for my just payment link releases and stuff. It's just fast and it's quick because my information's in there. But again, you want to make sure that all your information, address, name, etc., matches the credit card that you're using. And if all else fails and you are having payment issues with PayPal, Apple, anything, have your credit card handy and just manually type it in. Again, make sure it's the correct name and address, but if you're not getting those payment service providers to work, then just do it the old-fashioned way as quickly as possible. If Apple Pay is not working, move on to the next though. Don't just sit there and keep trying. Like, try another method. The fourth thing that I will say is working with a digital client advisor did pay off in this scenario, and sometimes working with someone on the chat or calling into the customer service phone number can also pay off. And I saw some of that in the purse for them after the fact. In Europe, people were able to get through on the customer service line and get payment links. And again, it's always proved successful for me working with a digital client advisor that has access to online inventory. And it did work out in this case scenario. I did get 3 items. However, on the flip side, it did not benefit me at all for the in-store release. So you kind of got to weigh those options. If you have a good in-store relationship and they've been able to help you out, then great, keep that relationship. Maybe also try to connect with somebody on customer service for some of these online releases. Either way, it came in handy for me during this release. I do want to mention desktop versus app. In this scenario, it did seem like the whole desktop waiting room experience was a little bit of a honeypot, like I said, to distract people. I don't think it was intentional, but I always shop on desktop and app. I have both open at the same time. I highly recommend that for any release. Not just luxury releases, but like I said, sneaker releases, anything. I'm always using both to see if one is moving faster than the other. And then once I progress further on one, that's where I just complete the sale. But I also work in tech, fashion and tech, and getting people to download an app and use an app is always a key KPI for any company that has an app. So I do expect things to be geared towards app, and that was accurate for this release. You also always want to make sure you have the app updated before major releases so that you don't go in to sign on that day at that time and then get thrown into an update and it throws you off. So I always recommend updating the app, making sure you have a login and email ready, even a previous purchase history with built-in address information. That always helps. Lastly, I will mention the Purse Forum, which I have been a member of the Purse Forum, I believe since 2006. I have to go back and check my sign-on date. Users on the Purse Forum share a lot of valuable information, and sometimes for these releases, specifically with Murakami, when the international releases are happening before the US release, you can see live tips and information coming in from those regions before the US release actually takes place. I was slightly looking at it, but I honestly just couldn't focus because I was getting so many messages on TikTok and Instagram, etc. I couldn't also be reading what was happening in the Purse Forum, but reading it after the fact, there was a lot of valuable information there. So if you really want to stay up to date with the most information, that's a great resource that you should sign up for if you are a handbag lover. Will these tips come in handy for the cherry release? I have no idea. The Cherry Blossom release was different from the multicolor release, as we have now seen. Could the cherry release be even more different from both of these releases? Are they trying to switch it up every time? It's possible. I do think that all of these tips are handy for any circumstance going forward. They could come in handy for cherry, so it's good to know, but who knows? I'm sure there will be some unique process happening for cherries. I don't know any information yet, but I will keep you guys updated either here or on TikTok as soon as I get more information about the cherry release. I hope that there's pre-orders, but if there's not, we'll figure it out. So I do want to mention something that I noticed about the way that the inventory was loading on the Louis Vuitton site as it was taking place, and whether I think that the app bypass was intentional or not. So it does seem like, I thought that what my client advisor had told me was valid, in that she doesn't think the release would happen before 8 a.m. because that's when they log on for work. That makes sense. It seems to me like Louis Vuitton was uploading inventory onto the site in groups, right? Like I said, when the banner first went up, there were only 6 items showing on the site. At no point did I ever see the full collection showing until after the release. I think they were adding sections of items in small amounts, and I don't think that they anticipated the amount of true fans that have that style number information to search by style number ahead of time. Most people get the style numbers after the fact, once the product is loaded on the site, but with all of the leaks and stuff that happen now, we do get the style numbers a lot sooner, and I feel like they didn't actually anticipate that. So my thought, again, this is completely my own opinion, I'm making this up, I have no insider information. My thought is that they intended on uploading items in small groups to have it ready for an 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern release. However, as soon as they loaded items, they were selling out instantly, and that's something that they couldn't control, and they just said, whatever, let it happen, like it is what it is. So I believe they had full intentions of uploading all of the items for a 9 a.m. release Eastern and letting people go into the waiting room and play it out that way. I think they were not anticipating the level of people that had style numbers that could search for items on the back end, and that's what ended up happening. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. I'm very curious, but I don't think that they created this secret bypass for everybody to get this inventory. I think they wanted it to be a normal release, and some of us just got lucky by searching by style number on app. Okay, last but not least, I want to give you an update on my items and if I plan on shopping resale and if I'm disappointed in those items still that I didn't get. I've had a couple days or weeks now to sit with my purchases. I am in love with this Speedy bag and I am definitely keeping it. So if you message me asking to buy it or take it off my hands, I'm not selling it. I am keeping it. If I'm being honest with you guys, I fell in love with it by the time I finished filming that video and putting it up. I was just looking for you guys to confirm my thoughts in the comments, and you did, so I greatly appreciate that. I am in love with all of the items that I got. I'm thankful for the 6 items that I got, and I am keeping all of them. However, the other items that were in my top, the Nice Mini, the chain, and the Alma, do I still want them? The answer is kind of. The Alma, I'm on the fence about. I do think that the handbag gods bless me in the what's meant to be will be sentiment was true in that the Speedy was the right bag for me. I am interested in adding the Alma BB to my collection, but I'm not interested in paying a crazy amount above resale. So I'm okay with letting that play out in the future, buying it a year, 5, 10 years from now, whatever. The 2 items that I really do still want are the Nice Mini and the bag chain. And putting those in priority order, I would say the Nice Mini is probably the #1 item that I would still love to pick up. I love the cherry blossom print on the cute, girly, feminine vanity. I want that sitting on my dresser or my vanity. I would love to pick that item up. I really don't want to pay resale for it though, so I'm going to continue to wait it out a little bit, but that is #1 of the 3. #2 is definitely the chain. I do love that chain. I think it would look great on this bag and other bags, but again, holding back on that resale. And then if the Alma BB fell into my lap at retail, I would probably pick it up. I would love to see it in person at the very least. That's what makes this the hardest, is not being able to shop the collection in person and actually compare, you know, what you love seeing it. But I'm not opposed to it if I was able to secure it. So will I buy these items resale? The answer is no. I'm not interested in supporting that right now. I'm not above that. Like, I realize I'm lucky enough to have secured these items. I'm not going to be reactionary in that I'm content with what I have and I am fully prepared to wait. Who knows? They could give people another shot to order cherry blossom around the time of cherries, which is what they did for multicolor during this cherry blossom release. I'm going to wait until cherries fully plays out and even wait past the return window of cherries, because if you don't interact with these people that are reselling, they might panic and return those items to store, right? So I'm not going to react until I have let the dust settle. And I'm not saying that like 30 days after cherries, the dust will be fully settled. It could take a year for the dust to settle and to see who truly loves Murakami versus who was just buying it for FOMO reasons, and then they might go and sell those items. So I'm adding to my archive wish list those 3 items, the Nice Mini, the chain, and the Alma BB. And if I have the opportunity to buy them for a great price, I will definitely consider it. But I'm not interested in supporting the resale market on those items at this time. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I fully expected the Cherry Blossom collection to sell out, just like the multicolor collection, and I fully expect the cherries collection to sell out as well. I do think it's going to have a little bit more inventory than the cherry blossom. I hope that I have a better chance at getting some items, because there are several items that I'm really have my eye on from that collection, and I can't wait to share my thoughts with you on that when we get the high-res images, hopefully soon. But who knows what that release is going to look like. If US will be able to pre-order or not, we will just have to wait and see. If you enjoyed this video and you found this information valuable, please give me a thumbs up. I would love to hear about your release experience or your tips and tricks, things that you you learned down in the comments. I would love for us all to continue to share with this community. I feel like we are all diehard Louis Vuitton fans, and I love reading your guys' comments, so appreciate anything you guys want to share below. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you enjoyed this video. I have a goal to hit 10,000 subscribers this year. I really need to do a Q&A video. Haven't decided how I'm gonna do that yet. I mean, there's a lot of videos that I owe you guys, but if you did enjoy this video and I didn't annoy the crap out of you, then I would appreciate if you would subscribe to my channel. If you want to follow me on my other social platforms, I am Rachel Went Shopping on Instagram and TikTok as well. I appreciate you guys all being here, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.